if I have an opportunity to take them out, I'm going to take them out. I was at the lowest of lows. I literally had not one single soul vote for me. I called him a snake. I'm sorry. That's what he is. And in that moment, guys, I was like, oh, I had to bite my lip because I wanted to stand up. I saw the writing on the wall and I was like, if you're buying that bullshit, that's on you.
What's up, guys? It's Ava and Ivy, and today we are welcoming back a very special guest, someone who is one of the very few people who got to play Beast Games not once, but twice. We're welcoming JC back to the podcast. Say hey, JC.
What's up, everybody? JC, Player 566, Beast Games Season 1, Season 2, the last OG standing in Season 2 for the record.
Yes. That's crazy. And I feel like I'm having deja vu right now, like talking to you on the podcast again. We love seeing you back on the show. And so can you tell us, like, how did you find out you were going to be in Season 2?
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Because when does lightning strike twice? But I was at the park with my kids and I get a call from Klistner. And of course, you answer that call when you get it. And he's like, hey, JC, are you in a quiet place? I was like, not really, but I can be. So I walk over and he's like, I've got something to share with you. He says, there's no guarantee, but there's a possibility you might be able to come back for Season 2. And it was very vague, very ambiguous. Like, he didn't give much details. He's like, would you have the availability just in case? And I was like, sure. So we left it at that. Didn't give me much to go with. And then a few weeks later, he calls me again. And he's like, all right, you're in, but you're not in. I was like, what do you mean? You're being so cryptic with me. And he basically said that they would bring us back, but there's no guarantee that we'll be actual players in the show. So I started thinking that we were just going to be going in as captains or as coaches or motivators or just to like do a pep talk or whatever. So yeah, we went into it blindly, but I signed up and I said, yeah, put me on. And the rest is history.
Yeah, that's so crazy. And we saw a little bit of the behind the scenes of like the reveal you guys had, seeing like who was brought back. That was super cool to see. Also, just love all the behind the scenes content that's coming out too.
I love that behind the scenes, right? Because it gives you a different perspective. I was the first one they brought into that room blindfolded. So there was nobody there. And I would just hear people walking in, we couldn't talk. And I heard people to my left, people to my right. I was like, who is it? Who is it? Who is it? Because I knew that there was going to be 10 of us, but I just didn't. None of us knew who was going to be there. The only person I knew for a fact was going to be there was Jeff, because I ran into him at the airport. We were on the same flight. And I was like, But I started thinking, I was like, but maybe they're not bringing him back to play. He's probably going to be like, hey, opening up the Season 2, putting the ribbon, kind of, so to speak. But yeah, he was a player.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. Must have been like an unreal feeling too. And so finding out the opportunity you had going into the game where they had to take a bribe, did you think that you were like someone was going to take it? What was your mindset going into that?
Once I knew that it was for a bribe, I felt sure I was getting in. At first, I thought the idea was that we would stand in front of them, plea our case, and then they decide who they want to bring back. And I was like, there is no way anything I say will bring me back into the show. But when I found out that it was bribing them with $100,000, I was like, that's a lot of money. And I was like, and they're strong and they're smart. I didn't foresee anybody on the strong team actually taking a bribe because they're competitive, they're athletic, and I was like, they're going to go for the win. But I was for sure that someone on the smart team would be taking the bribe. Yeah, and I had no doubts that I'd get in once I found out what the real deal was.
Yeah. What did you say? Like, is there anything that wasn't shown that you like were pitching yourself for them to take your briefcase specifically?
We all had a moment to speak and say some, words. I remember saying something along the lines of, my mission is the same. I'm here for my family. I'm going to play for my family. And I remember mentioning that something that they're not aware of is that my family kind of went through some turmoil after Season 1 with my son getting sick. I said, so I'm fighting even harder for him now in this season. Something along those lines.
Okay, yeah. So when you were brought into the game, and I guess essentially, I guess I would like to hear the dynamics of when you were first brought in, and you were in blocks, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So during that game, and I guess kind of after that game, how were you greeted by the new players? Did you expect them to be nice? Like, how was that going in?
Yeah, it was hard finding my place and fitting in. I felt like an outcast. I was very honest with the people that did embrace me. I said, hey, this is your season. I'm just a guest. I'm a guest in your playground. I didn't want them to feel like I was infiltrating or anything like that, that I wasn't trying to come and steal their thunder because it's their show. So at first, it was hard because people would walk just right by me. I mean, they wouldn't even make eye contact with me. I could feel the daggers from some of the players that they were out for me. That spread really quickly. I mean, you guys know how it is in the city. You say something and it gets back to everyone, right? And there was already buzz that there were a group of people on the strong team that were targeting all of the OGs, not just me. So I was like, okay, I see you. Bring it, you know? But some people were very welcoming and embracing. I remember Brandon was the first person that walked up to me. He's like, hey, can I give you a tour? I would love to give you a tour of the city. I was like, yeah, let's do it. And slowly but surely, I started making some connections. And yeah, I started to feel a little bit more welcomed at that point.
I mean, I also feel like it's really difficult to kind of break in, especially after episode 1, because like episode 1, people made bonds immediately. They've spent all this
Right.
time together already, so it's very hard for you to break into those bonds. So honestly, from our point of view, it felt like you did pretty well in finding the relationships that you kind of needed in this game,
Yeah.
which is probably unexpected by the audience, you know?
And Ava, I think
Yeah.
it was because of that first challenge being a team challenge, right? Going into cubes, because you're absolutely right. Cliques were already formed, right? I think the dynamics would have been different if they would have brought us in from day one, right? But they had already spent about a week and a half, I think, because of weather kind of delayed things. They had spent quite a bit of time like bonding. So you're absolutely right. It was a struggle trying to get into those inner circles that were already formed. But the first challenge helped me out a lot because played as a team, right? I carried multiple roles within that challenge, the cubes. If I wasn't holding the base, I was helping lift cubes. I was helping form and direct what sequence should go up next. I was all over the place. I was helping Sue tie them up. So I wanted to make sure that they saw that I was a team player, that I was in it to win it, and that I was going to do everything I could to get that win secured for us. Being the only OG as well in cubes, because my whole squad was on the other team.
Yeah. What was that like when you realized, like, oh, I'm separated from them? Were you, like, nervous, or did you feel like it was almost like a good thing, like, you're getting your time to bond with everybody without, because I feel like people would be worried about the OGs sticking together or anything. So what
Yeah.
was that like separated?
Great question, Ivy, because at first I was bummed. Like, when I saw them all being cherry picked and brought over to the other side, I was like, hi, I'm here. I'm part of the OG.
Yeah.
But that came with the stigma that I brought into the game. People were very hesitant in working with me or trusting me. So I'm not going to lie. At first, I was just like, wow, all the people that I know I can work with very well, the people that I know I can trust no matter what, that are going to pull through for me are over there. And then I took a quick little moment to think, and I was like, this is meant to be. This is the way it's supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be on that team. You have to analyze everything, right? And think 2-3 steps ahead and take yourself out of the emotion of it. And I was like, this is where I need to be. And once I saw that we were team yellow, I was like, we secured this win. I have a thing with yellow. And I was like, this is ours. This is ours. So everything happened the way it was supposed to happen. It sucks that so many of them went home not even seeing the city, but the cards weren't in their favor.
Yeah. Did you get the chance to say bye?
I did. I
Yeah.
did. It was very quick. Production kind of sweeps you up and you're out, right? It's like your flight is waiting for you. But yeah, we did get a chance to say hi, and I got a chance to mingle with them and catch up with them, before the actual show started. So it was good. It was a good little reunion for us. I needed that.
So, okay, I kind of want to dive into the dynamics of season 2 players versus season 1, and especially coming from you who was there for both. Do you feel like the player dynamics were different in season 2 than season 1? Like, were people more competitive, or were they more like laid back? Like, what did you observe going in?
Yeah, I would say, Ava, that season 2, they had the blueprint, right? They already knew what these games were about. They kind of were able to figure out what kind of twists, Jimmy likes to throw in the game. So you have a bit of an advantage, right? Kind of going into the game. So most importantly, in season 2, what I didn't see in season 1 is that in season 2, they were forming alliances really fast, really early, without really knowing like people and what they bring to the table and what their skill sets are, their strengths are. It's like in season 1, we bonded, we got to know each other, and we built our alliances based on just pure trust and loyalty, right? Whereas season 2 was more calculated. Like, I need this amount of strong people in my squad. Just in case I need smart, these are the 2 smart that we're going to try to play with. And, they were able to formulate little mini alliances throughout their season. So yeah, that's the difference that I observed, that they already had some really
Mm.
strong alliances formed.
Yeah, I mean, and we've
And
seen that kind of play out so far, you know? I mean,
Hmm.
all the way up to episode 8, they still have most of their alliance together, which I guess
Right.
that kind of
right.
brings me to, like, the obstacle course, choosing teams and stuff. I do wanna break that down a little bit with you, like, did you go up to Jim and Monica? Like, how did that team form? What were your feelings and thoughts going into that?
Yeah. So it was such an awkward moment because they're like, all right, form teams. And then everybody's like, and leaves JC standing there. And I was like,
Oh
hi,
no.
again, like I'm here. Like it was literally, it was so weird. It's just like nobody would come up to me. Like, and I would try to go up to people and they weren't looking at me. They weren't, it is just, it's a weird feeling. I don't know how to put it into words. It kind of feels awkward to a certain degree, that everybody's running from you instead of running to you. But Brandon did come up to me. Brandon was like, hey, JC, I want you on my team now. Brandon was, at the onset, really welcoming. He brought me into his pod. He gave me a tour. So I was like, cool. Yeah, I'll join up with you. And then Ella came over and he's like, Ella, let's form a team. I've got JC. And then I read body language, right? And I can see that Ella was uncomfortable knowing that Brandon had JC on his squad. And then they started speaking in, I believe it was Russian. And I was like, okay, so I'm not supposed to hear what's going on here. And I felt uncomfortable at that point. And I was like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to go look for another team because I can sense that she didn't want to be on a team with me for whatever reason,
Mm.
So I broke away from that. And then as I started walking away, that's when Monica calls me and she's like, hey, JC, come here. So Monica was already standing next to Katie and Hannah. And of course, Jim is a guaranteed spot. They needed just one more person. So she calls me over and she's like, we want you to be on our team. And then we had some conversation about, trust and, can they trust me? And I was like, 100%. I said, I'm here to play. I said, I've got your back. And Jim was a little hesitant at that point. But yeah, we locked in and Monica called the shots on that one. She was like, no, we're gonna have JC on our team. And she pulled me in.
Were you nervous at all when Hannah was the captain for the bribe, or did you feel confident?
I felt confident. There was no hesitation. If she would have pressed it, I would have been happy for her. I'm not going to judge her and be like, how dare you? This is JC, not Mia. Yeah, so I would have been super happy if she would have pressed it. I wouldn't have judged her in any way whatsoever. I mean, who am I to judge someone that's going to take guaranteed money, right? But I felt super confident with her being there for two reasons. She advanced because of us, right? She didn't have a play in the course. We had already secured the win, so she never got a chance to actually participate. And that's one of the reasons why we chose her. Not only because she seemed trustworthy and loyal, but because she didn't have a part in advancing us, right? We wanted her to also have a part in that so that everybody contributed in one way or another. So yeah, I felt full trust with her being up there. I didn't see her once hesitating or felt nervous that she would press.
It's crazy to think that you lived through two like captain bribes like that. Because I think back about how much anxiety I had when we had Dino going up there and like
Yeah.
losing my mind. So I just can't imagine living through that twice. That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, don't get me
Um,
wrong, your heart still beats, right? Because
right,
it's
yeah. You never
nerve-wracking, and
know.
you're seeing that dollar amount just tick, 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 and you're like, "Oh my god, that's a lot of money. That's life-changing money to just go boop and press a button."
Yeah,
Crazy.
literally insane. So, do you feel like after competing on the obstacle course and going through the bribe and everything, that's when you really bonded with Jim and Monica?
100%. 100%. And not only Jim and Monica, but Katie and Hannah as well. Like I felt like we had a strong thing going. We celebrated, we cheered, we were happy for each other. You have that moment where you're like, hey, I got you, I got you, I got you, and you're in that aura, right? Of like, this is awesome. So yeah, I felt like at that point, I had my mini alliance. That's what it felt like for me. I had people that were going to have my back, and they knew I was going to have theirs. But yeah, that's the point where I really got close to Jim and Monica. I would say the most out of everybody.
So they were like your top allies, I guess you would say. Was there anyone else that you felt kind of close to besides like Hannah and Katie before we go into like episode 4 and talk about Survivor?
Yeah, there's a lot of players that I really connected with, like Nikki. She was amazing. Gloria, I had heart-to-heart moments with quite a few players. There were a lot of players that I really did connect with and bond with. Just we never had an opportunity to like be on a team together but we had lunches and breakfasts and dinners and we chatted and we got to know each other. So I formed quite a few bonds, but yeah, none like with Jim and Monica. I mean, they were just always inclusive of me. They were like, hey, come over here, JC, come here, sit with us, let's chat. They were calling me in versus me going up to a table and be like, hey, can I sit with you guys? And you know how that is, right? When you feel
Right.
welcome and you feel embraced, you kind of gravitate towards that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that does bring me into episode 4 of like, okay, so now you find your cannonball, but you know that Jim and Monica aren't coming. Did you feel kind of unsafe going into the island episode because you didn't have them with you?
I didn't, only because of who was there. So, as you guys know, I found the last cannonball, right? And it couldn't be more perfect, right? It's so climactic. It's like, who's gonna get the last one? And here comes little old JC, and he finds the last cannonball. I mean, you can't write that stuff. So when we approach the cannons, you get instructions first. They give you these headphones to put on because it's super loud. And while I'm getting my instructions, I'm looking at the players that already advanced because I didn't know at that point who was there. And when I did a quick scan of the players, I was like, okay, Ian, no. Tyler, no. Nick, no. August, no. Ethan, maybe. Hannah, for sure. Katie, for sure. Sue, I got really close to Sue. We spent a 16-hour air flight together. I was like, for sure. And I said, Jeff, for sure. Just out of loyalty for season 1 players. So when I looked at the squad, I was like, I've got half the people that I need here. Yeah. So
Okay.
I felt confident going into it.
Okay, and now what was your reaction finding out that it was the Survivor? Do you watch Survivor?
I used to back in the days. I think I've watched the first 3 or 4 seasons. And then
Oh gosh.
life got busy. I kind of got disconnected from it. I loved it. So I do need to reconnect and kind of binge. I mean, it'll probably at this point take me like a whole month to get caught
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great show. It's a great show. And I think now more than ever is when I need to reconnect and kind of see what the gameplay is like. Because I think I would like to submit an application and see if maybe I can get in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean,
You got
I
to.
think you would perform well in Survivor. I'm not gonna lie. So
I've got
I
a
don't
good
know.
15 pounds that I could shed. And
And you
the
have
thing is, Ava, I would do well as long as they don't know who I am. If nobody there
Fact.
recognizes me, then
Yeah,
I'll be
you're
good.
golden.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
if
that's
one
so
person's like,
true.
"Oh, you're that guy," I'm like, "Oh, there it goes."
Yeah. But here's the thing, like we've talked about this too, like how Survivor is very more cutthroat, I would say, like, and
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
are respected when it comes to like blindsiding people or making a big move to advance themselves in the game. So I don't know, maybe people would like you
It's a
because of what
different
you've done in
gameplay,
these
yeah.
games. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so kind of going back into the episode, how was it pulling up to the island? And did you guys go straight into the challenge pulling up?
No, we had one night, I wanna say, yeah, one night, maybe 2. I can't recall. But no, we landed. We needed to rest first because that's a really long flight. I mean, it was close to
Mm.
16 hours, I want to say.
Wow.
So we arrived. It was one whole night to just kind of kick back, recover, have dinner, have breakfast, have lunch. And I think it was the next day, if I'm not mistaken, that we went on the boat and went to the island. Well, we took a bus to the boat and then the boat to the island.
So right when y'all got off the boat, you talked to Jeff Probst and everything. Then you immediately went into the challenge. Like you didn't get a break there. You just went straight into it.
Yeah. At that point, once we
Okay.
were actually on the island, yeah, it was game on. We literally walked through. Just the edit actually is very factual in that. And we literally walked through. We got to see the course, and we were like, "Oh, this is gonna be fun," and that's it. And then they started explaining the rules. They started miking us up, and they wanted to capture everything while there was still daylight and stuff because it's gonna take a little while. So we went right into it once we got into the island.
Jeez, no, I'm still just so jealous of that episode. I can't
I
believe that
know.
collab happened. Like,
Oh,
it
he's
blows
a
my
living
mind.
legend. It was just amazing just, being next to him and seeing him in real life.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's so
I
awesome.
would be so intimidated. But so yeah, we see like the first challenge. I'm trying to like play back in my head the episode. We see the first challenge. Obviously, we see the whole numbers thing happen where everyone started yelling out numbers. Very entertaining to say the least. And ultimately, your your team ended up coming out on top. How did that feel? And did you really know what to expect after that challenge was over? Like, did you
No.
expect there to be another challenge immediately? What was going on?
We knew there would be another challenge. I honestly thought that the next challenge would be the following day, right? Because we were there
Okay.
all day. I didn't foresee them like going from one street to the other. But yeah, we went from one street to the other. It's funny that you call out the numbers I'm calling, right? Because that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And you can kind of see it in the edit. It's like I busted my butt for my code. And yeah, it's my bad that I didn't like think to switch it up. You know, in that moment, I was like, grab your key and run. And I ate that dirt twice. But yeah, when they started calling numbers, oh, I was pissed, man. I was like, oh, Mr. Jeff, fair play over here, calling out numbers. I guess that's fair play. I call it cheating, but it is what it is. But yeah, we went right in. We secured that win. Um, you know, that was a moment for me as well to realize like where I fit in the group, right? Because I was like, once again, like last chosen. Like they had no choice. If they could have picked somebody else in lieu of JC, they would have picked somebody else, you know? But yeah, it brought me back to that moment of like, wow, nobody wants me here. Like this is crazy, you know? And it feels horrible. It's a horrible feeling. But I was the last one. He had no choice. I got on the team and I have two decisions to make. Either I'm going to, you know, sulk in that moment and not give my all, which I would never do, or I'm going to show them what I'm made of and that I'm here to compete and that I'm here to rally for the team and win. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And it's good that you didn't, like, obviously it hurts for sure to be the last pick, but you know, you don't fully take it hard and you see like the positive outlook on it, you know, like you're not going
Right.
to sulk and
Mhm.
cause them to lose just because that you were last pick,
Yeah,
you know.
right.
So I like that
Right.
mindset that you have, but kind of knowing that dynamic and going into the next challenge and seeing the whole Ethan situation play out when you were up on that pole, dude. Like, first of all, how long were you up there for? And second of all, what was your mindset when the bribe came out?
Oh man, it felt like an eternity. I don't know how long we were up there, but we were up there for a while. It felt, I want to say it felt like an hour to an hour and a half, maybe. You kind of lose track of time, right? When you're in those moments and you're just focused on your task and you're trying to just hold on to your life. But we were up there for a while. And, you know, aside from the players being on the side, the whole entire production crew is there watching. There's like 40, 50 cameras. Like they have so many angles covered. Every single person from production was there. I looked out into the field and I want to say there was about 150 people just staring at you. And you're like, oh my God,
Wow.
if this isn't intimidating enough, right? And of course, having Jeff Probst there and you know Jimmy, Mr. Beast, it adds that extra layer. But yeah, we were there for a long time. I don't know the exact time, but it was a long time. And when the money came out, it wasn't a thought for me to even consider it. It wasn't even a thought. I went into season 2 wanting to compete, wanting to show who I am, and I wanted to win challenges. That was my goal. And I said, if I take this money, I'm not winning this challenge, right? I'm just basically backing out. So I consciously made that decision that no matter what they bring out, however much money that he brings out to bribe us with, I'm going to be the last man standing on this pole, or one of two.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And like, yeah, that was such a cool challenge. I remember when Ava and I were watching it, we were like, oh, JC's good. Like he is good in this challenge. He's got this. He's great. So I don't blame you for not taking that bribe.
It was hard, Ivy. I'm not gonna lie. It was
Yeah,
crazy being.
I
I
bet.
mean, we were super high. It was like the camera does it no justice. We were up there, and it was hard. And it was hard. But I had to prove who I am. You know, I'm not smart enough
Mhm.
to be on the smart team. I'm not strong enough to be on the strong team. But I'm an OG, and that's something they'll never take from me. You know, we bring that experience, we bring that drive, and that commitment to win, and that's what I had to prove that I'm here to play.
Yeah. Wait, so after you got off the pole, like once that challenge was done, how long was it until final tribal? And did you immediately like feel confident going into final tribal, or what was your thoughts?
I didn't feel confident, but I felt comfortable enough going into it. It took a while for us to actually go into final tribal council. I want to say that was maybe about 4 hours later. So, you know, they broke us away. We had dinner. Everybody was set really far away from each other. Like they wanted to make sure that nobody was like colluding or speaking to each other or giving anybody tips or advice on who they should vote for. So I appreciate the production did that. They kept everybody super, super separate, including me and Ian. We were really far away from each other. So that took about maybe, I want to say 3 to 4 hours because it's a night shoot and they need to make sure that, that it's set up properly for the scene. And during that time, you're alone and you're thinking. And going back to what I said earlier, I figured I have at least half the votes locked in. I said I have at least half the votes with Sue, Hannah, Katie, Jeff. I said, and that's all I wanted because I wanted to compete for that island. I didn't want to hand off. I don't want to be handed an island. It shouldn't be a gift. Season 2, these are big prizes. You should be earning it. And when you look back at season 1, Mia earned that island, right? She fought for it from the beginning to the end. And I wish that would have been the case as well. I'll never forget the moment that Jimmy was like, it's going to be a vote. And I was like, great. Yay, votes. Because you guys know how I do on votes. But without beating a dead horse, I honestly thought I had half the votes. And that's all I needed. Because in half the votes, we go into another challenge. And then I would show Ian who the true ninja warrior is.
Oh my gosh. That final travel, I have to say, it got a lot more intense than I thought it would. Honestly, one of the big moments that I remember now is Jeff making that call out on you almost in like everything that he said. Did you expect that from Jeff?
No, he blindsided me. I didn't expect it at all. He blindsided me, but I'm not surprised. Something that didn't make the edits is while I was out there on the poles, holding on to dear life, Jeff stands up from the bleachers that they were sitting on, and he's like, "Hey, JC, why don't you remind us all what you did in episode 8? Why don't you bring us back?" And I was like, wow. And I remember responding, not so much in a negative way, but just to end the conversation. I was like, hey, Jeff, you know exactly what happened. There's no need for me to talk about that, but he was trying to throw me off my game. He wanted me to come off that pole. So it's not surprising that he did that. If I'm being 100% honest, and I don't mince words, it was a jerk move. It was very intentional. It was very calculated. He wanted to make sure that he reminded players what a bad guy I am. He didn't want to see me win. It was either a moment of revenge, so to speak, like, I'm going to give you a taste of your own medicine, JC. This is what it feels like when you go against people, or maybe even spite. He saw that I was outperforming him, I don't know which one of those two it is, but he tells me it's something different. I spoke to him afterwards, and I was like, why didn't you vote for me? Because I'm curious, because I honestly thought there was going to be that OG loyalty, and ironically, crazy enough, if it were him up there, him against Ian, I would have voted for Jeff, despite him having a $10 million bank account. Like, I would have voted for him out of pure loyalty. But his reasoning and his logic and what he told me is that he chose not to vote for me because I wasn't believing him when he told me he had nothing to do with the plot to take down JC. That I was choosing to still not believe him, even though he was telling me this is his truth. And ironically, when I'm telling him at Tribal Council that, hey, I feel guilt. I hurt really good people. I regret those actions. He chose at that point not to believe me and call it, you're saying this just for consideration of a vote. So it's like, come on, man. You want me to believe you? You don't want to believe me that I'm truly reflecting back at what I did. And I acknowledge now, and I'm showing remorse, but now it's gameplay, Jeff. So it was very intentional. It was very calculated. Again, it was making sure that he planted that seed to remind players not to vote for me, and he succeeded. So great gameplay.
Did you feel like, so after that moment happened in Tribal Council, did you still have the moment to give like your final pitch after that happened? I'm trying to remember the timeline.
Yeah, there was a final pitch before the votes were, tallied up, and I forgot what I said. I just remember thinking to myself, don't discuss anything about Preston and my son. That's all I remember thinking in that moment. It's like, you don't know what to say. Right. But that was the one thing I promised myself. I said, I don't want to exploit my child on that kind of a platform. Like, I can speak to you guys here on a pod, but on that kind of a platform, I didn't want to use that as a way to get sympathy votes. Right. Plus, most importantly, they already knew I wasn't going to be telling them something new, so I made it a conscious decision not to use my son as a reason to earn a vote, to exploit him because of, his illness.
So after you guys finished discussion and everyone was going up to vote, did you kind of lose that confidence that you had that you thought like those 4 people would be behind you?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember the clip where Jeff is coming at me you can almost see me kind of like look down and shrug. Like I knew at that point the nail was in the coffin. I knew it.
Mm.
At that point I was like, wow, you succeeded, Jeff. You did what you needed to do. I didn't feel confident at that point. I thought at the very least I would at least get one vote from one of the girls or maybe three. I already took Jeff out of the equation. I initially started that thinking I have 4 votes secured, maybe even Ethan as a swing vote because we spent a lot of times on the pod together and we connected. I wanted at least one vote, and I thought for a moment, maybe I'll still get the girls to vote for me, but didn't
Mm.
turn out that way. Very disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if they like kind of got scared to vote for you just because of that moment that happened, like cuz maybe they were scared that they didn't want someone to target them because they voted for you. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
So maybe they said,
100%. I mean, I would have had more respect for them if they say, hey, I'm giving my vote to JC just because of loyalty, right? He's been there for me. Like, look at Katie and Hannah. They're there because of me, right? Not only because of me, I contributed to them being there, right? Had we not gone through that course, there would be no island for them to compete on. It's like you forget the things that people do for you to get you where you need to go. And then all of a sudden you're just not, you're just a memory at that point. So yeah, I would have loved for someone to have gone against the grain, but you're absolutely right, Ava. It was that fear of, oh, I don't want to be the one that votes for JC, right? It was naive for them to even think that, well, we're going to go with you, Ian, because you're stronger, you're faster, you're more agile, you're going to get me through these next challenges. Nobody can guarantee anyone is going to get you through the next challenge, right? Because the first thing Ian would have done when he needed to form a team is not pick any of them, And you see it in his decision for the cubes. He's flat out said, I give you my word is my bond. They called out Briley because him and Briley were thick as thieves. And August called that out. They're like, so you would choose us over Briley? Like it was very direct. And he's like, absolutely. And in that moment, guys, I was like, oh, I had to bite my lip because I wanted to stand up. I saw the writing on the wall. And I was like, if you're buying that bullshit, that's on you. Because I knew the moment that he got what he wanted, he was going to turn the corner and say, peace out, guys. I knew it. I called him a snake. I'm sorry. That's what he is, and it's not coming from a bitter place because he had nothing to do with winning the island. But it's just coming from a place of knowing how he was moving throughout the games. He never once spoke to me, Jeff. He had very limited interactions with the girls before the island. He only befriended them out of convenience. Like, we're going to be on this island together. Now I have to make friends with you. Now I have to, socialize with you. It was never his choice, So I saw the writing on the wall. I saw it. And when that happened, I was proud that I'm proud that he stepped up and said, hey, what's going on here? You were supposed to go for island people. What is this? And sure enough, he shrugged it off and was like, I'm content with my decision. Of course you are, because now you have the island.
Yeah, that's crazy.
We talked to Ian about his cube situation and how, like, technically he had someone from the island in the cube with him. I don't know. It's just a very difficult situation to talk about, too, because by technicality, I guess he was right. He was in there with one island person and obviously Briley. But again, it goes back on his word of saying, like, I would choose you guys over Briley. In reality, he didn't because he chose to go in there with Briley. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just he's backpedaling at this point, and so he doesn't come across as going back on his word, but he went back on his word. It is what it is. At the end of the day, it's a game. It's his decision to make. It's just he fooled them. He fooled them. He specifically said, I have all 8 of you, and then looks at me and forgot that I was next to him and said, all 9 of you. I've got your back. If he really wanted to be the hero, he should have brought Ethan in there with him because Ethan is the reason that he won that island. He should have had Ethan and Tyler because Tyler was his second right-hand man, but his bond with Briley was way too strong and he broke his word for her. And honestly, it really sucks because I personally believe that's the reason why Briley and Tyler were eliminated afterwards. I think he had, his decision to bring them into the cube had a big part in that by
Yeah, that's
association.
an interesting point.
Yeah.
So they could have probably
I
gone
agree.
further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You really never know. And so we see him win the island. Obviously, that's a very low for you. But then all of a sudden, Jimmy comes out with a little twist. And what did you expect it to be? Like when he said that, what were your emotions in that moment?
I never expected it to be the coin. I saw this little tiny box come out and I was like, that's an immunity idol. right? Because going back to like my days of when I used to watch Survivor, I know that there's like immunity idols and stuff, and I really wanted immunity. I wanted to have something in my back pocket that I can tap out at any time and be like, yeah, I'm gonna sit this one out. Here's my immunity idol. Pass me through, right? And I was waiting for that moment. Like I would have used it in the cubes if I would have had immunity idol. I would have been like, nope, I'm not playing this game. This is psychologically torture. Here you go. Here's my immunity idol. Put me into the top 10, right? I would have secured a spot. So yeah, when I got the coin, I was like, this is interesting. And I just remember thinking, what do I do with this, right? Because this is a double-edged sword. It can help advance you into top 6, which it's great, but it doesn't guarantee that it's going to advance you into top 6, right? Because there's always that, well, is JC going to flip it or is he not going to flip it? So I made a conscious decision to make sure that they were aware that if I did make it into top 6, because of their help, I promised them I would flip it and I would have kept my word 100%. I got this close to being in top 6 last year. With that last vote, I needed one little vote and it was just, I was craving that just to be able to say, okay, this season I made it into top 6 and I would have flipped it. If I needed to go home at that point, I needed to go home. At least I did something. I kept my word, right? But yeah, I didn't know what to make of it. And, Jimmy asks, like, what's going through your mind? And I just remembered, I was like, nothing's going through my mind. Like, I'm just, blank because I was at the lowest of lows. I literally had not one single soul vote for me. And I felt hurt. I felt disappointed. I'm a human being. I'm stuck in that emotion. Like, you can't expect me to just flip out and be like, hey, I got the coin now. Yay. I'm still in that moment of sadness, so to speak. So I was just empty. I didn't know what to think of. And when he says, tell us what you're thinking, the first thing that popped into my mind was leverage. And that's what I said, and it turned out to be a pretty iconic line. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to share a fun fact with you. Someone did not like that choice of words. And you guess who that might be?
Who?
So not to throw him under the bus, but to throw him under the bus, Jeff approaches me afterwards and we're on the side and, they're working on trying to like de-mic us and all that stuff. It's just me and him. And he found it offensive that I said leverage. He literally comes up to me. He's like, leverage, JC? Really leverage? You couldn't think of anything else to say? Da-da-da. And I was like, I'm sorry, Jeff. I didn't know that you were part of the production crew now. Like, what should I have said, Jeff? I'm sorry that I'm not a wordsmith like you, Jeff. Like, that's what came out of me. That's what I thought. He was so bent over that. And I still don't understand why. Like, why would it bother him what I say, But you'll never see that edit.
Yeah, I guess it's just kind of coming in from like the season 1 drama, which still honestly feels like it remains unsolved, like unresolved. There's still a lot of feelings around it. And honestly, I mean, obviously me and Ivy don't know the full story of everyone or whoever's story is correct, but it's just honestly, it's surprising how long that's been dragged on. And I guess it's relevant because you're literally playing season 2 of Beast Games, but yeah,
Right.
I didn't expect it to, kind of stay unresolved.
Oh,
as it
it's
is now,
lingering.
so.
Yeah, it's still unresolved, and I don't know if it's ever going to be resolved. There's that
Right.
rivalry that we have amongst each other. We love each other, and at the same token, we hate each other. It's like, it's just that banter.
Yeah.
We go back and
Yeah.
forth, and yeah, it is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, so we understand that, losing the island, not getting a vote was a pretty low. Then you go to this high of the coin. And then we see you come back into the city. And it was interesting to us, though, because a lot of people in the city thought that you would win the island. Was that kind of a confidence boost for you hearing that?
That felt good, to be honest. I mean, clearly I had the wrong people in the island with me. Clearly, right? I needed the people in the city to be in the island with me, or it would have been awesome if they would have been able to hear what happened in Tribal and have them cast votes as well. Might have changed the trajectory of the outcome. But yeah, it felt good knowing that I had some support back home in the city. And to be honest, when I got back into the city, because of how I felt from what went down on the island, I was like, I'm Team City now. I am going to make sure that whatever I need to do to get these island people out, I'm going to do it. Like, they were my number one targets at this point. I was just so, disappointed. And not so much with like Nick and August. I'd even throw Tyler in there, Ethan. Not so much with them, because there was no way I was going to get a vote from them regardless, right? So I'd be naive to think that anything I said would have persuaded them. So it wasn't so much them, but it was the ones that I thought that I had a bond with that I felt
Mm.
betrayed. So at that point, I was like, I'm not partnering up with any of the girls. I'm not partnering up with Jeff. If I have an opportunity to take them out, I'm going to take them out. That's how I
Mm.
felt. And my objective at that point was I need to form some really strong alliances with the people in the city right now, And that's why I went around
Yeah.
sharing what happened, because in the island, everybody was like, Team Island, we got each other, right? Yeah, 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 yeah. Rah, rah, rah. I was like, okay, got you.
Yeah. You were moving through the city. I mean, the edit, the
Yeah.
edit was crazy. You just going to everyone. I was like, yo, that's crazy. So, did you feel like because you had the coin, there was a shift in dynamics with anyone particular, or maybe just in general? Or did you still feel like you had to work to gain these people's trust in the
Yeah,
game?
I still had to work to gain their trust. It wasn't like, oh my God, he's got the coin. Now we've got to protect JC. I never got that feeling of like, hey, no matter what, we got to make sure JC goes through. I never felt that. But it was nice having that. It gave me a little sense of power, so to speak, that I had that. But yeah, I never once felt like it solidified me getting advanced.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I actually have a question about the coin. Like, were you told that you could give it to someone else or sell it? Or like were you told anything about the coin, or they're just like, you have the coin?
No, I was never told not to. It's not part of the
Okay.
instructions. Basically the directions are that if I get eliminated, the coin gets eliminated. And so that's why I found that little loophole when I was in the cubes. I'm like, well, until I actually shackle up, I'm not technically eliminated. And there's no dialogue about it not being transferable or me not wanting it, right? So I figured at that point, that's the best I could do. It felt the right thing to do in that moment. Like, why am I going to take this coin home with me and take away the possibility of possibly doubling the price pot, right? Because it's not
Right.
guaranteed that it's going to be doubled. Still 50-50 chance. But I didn't want to take that away from anybody. So it would be selfish of me to be like, I'm keeping this coin later, you know?
No, that's super interesting to hear because I was wondering the same thing. I was like, how does that work? And did anybody else know what you could do with it? So that's cool to hear that
Yeah.
you really just had kind of freedom to do what you want with the coin. Like you weren't told not to do that
Yeah.
stuff. So I guess, should we talk about the cube now? What was your thought process of going into the cubes with Jim and Monica? And did you feel like you had a chance of making it through?
Yeah, I had the strongest connection with them, right? And I think for cube challenges, it's always best to be with people you trust, people you know. It just makes that experience so much better, right? Instead of being stuck in this queue with people that you despise, it's like every minute would feel like an hour. They happen to be both next to me in that moment, as you've seen in the past, when they're like, pick a team, everybody just scatters. It's like roaches, right? So they happen to be next to me. It just felt right. I knew that it was going to be a fair play. I knew that we were going to have, that we were going to play a game and not try to manipulate or deceive each other. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to be in a cube where, fair play came into play. So it felt right. It felt right to me. I wouldn't change that for anything. And we had an awesome time just bonding and getting to know each other. I was with the right people for sure.
So at what point in the cube did you ultimately decide that you were gonna give Monica like the fast pass through?
Really, really early on at the very beginning, I want to say probably within the first hour of us being there. And just for the record, that wasn't anything that, Jim tried to convince me on. This came purely from me. To share with you a little backstory, in season one, I would meditate and ask for signs. And every single time I got a sign, I got a sign, I got a sign. And I knew I was going to be advancing because of these signs, right? Season two, I did the same thing. I would ask for signs. As soon as I got that call from Klitzner that I was going to be going on, I started asking for signs. It's so strange. And I know people are going to find this hard to believe. About a week or two before we actually left, I would wake up occasionally at 4:44 in the morning, just randomly. And I kept thinking, oh my God, is my phone like broken? Is this thing stuck on 4:44? Really odd. The day that I leave to uh, head to the airport, I stop at Walgreens, I get some snacks, and my receipt comes out to $4.44. And I was like, ooh, I see you. What am I supposed to do with this sign, right? Because I'm already knowing that this is my sign. They fly us out there. We get into hotel rooms. I get into my room. When production comes to pick us up, I open up my door, and the room right across from me is room 444. I was like, wow, I hear you, man, loud and clear. What am I supposed to do with this? And I'm still figuring it out myself. And it wasn't until I ran into Monika one day in the city. She was down. I could see her eyes are full of tears. I was like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "No." And we sat down. We had a one-on-one, and she opened up and shared some stuff with me. And during that conversation, she reaches into her necklace and pulls out her charm, and her charm is 444. And I was
Oh,
like, "I got you." And it was at that point I realized, there was no doubt in my mind. I realized that season 2 was not about me. Season 2 was about me helping someone advance, me helping change someone's um, situation. And that was the best way that I could do it. So when I saw that she was wearing 444, I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is so crazy. So within the first hour of that, I want to say within the first hour of the cubes, I could see she's stressed out, because there's a possibility if she might be separated by Jim and all that. But I just remembered the 444 on her necklace. And I was like, "Hey, Monika," I said, "you don't have to play." And she's like, "What do you mean?" She was like a little confused by that. I was like, "You've got a fast pass in." I said, "Just let me and Jim duke it out." And she started crying. And Jim was like, "Are you sure?" Like, everybody was like, "Why would you do that? You're reducing your odds." But it was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do for me.
that's so sweet. That's so cool to hear because, like, literally, what are the odds? And I've seen on social media, I don't know if it's like you commenting or something. I've seen the 444 between you and Monica, and I didn't
Yeah.
know what the context was. So that's really awesome.
And it's
That's so
still
cool.
following me. It's so crazy. I literally just took a flight back from New York and my boarding time was 4:44. I'm like, "What?" It's so
Wow.
crazy. I looked it up and it basically says that you're on the right path. I think that's what it signifies, that you're on the right path. So, 4:44. I know,
And
it's
so
crazy.
I guess just another question I had about the cube. So we see you make the offer for Jim to self-sacrifice to keep the coin in the game. Did
Yeah.
you think he was going to do that, or what
It's
was your
my last
thoughts?
ditch effort, right? It's like, I don't want to leave, man. I'm having so much fun. I want to stay in this game. And I know that if I would have stayed, I would have fought really hard and aligned with Monica. It would have been Team JC Monica, Team JC Monica. There's no doubt in my mind that we would flourish and thrive together. But yeah, it was one of those last ditch efforts, like maybe, just maybe he might want to take this like honorable stance and be like, "Hey, you know what, JC, you didn't have to do what you did. You didn't need to give Monica a fast pass. I'm here for Monica. I'm here to support her. I appreciate what you did. Go." But then again, the opposite side of that coin is like, who would want to give up their opportunity? You worked so hard to get there, and I'd be foolish to think that he would quickly say yes. But there was a moment where he may have thought he would accept the offer, right? But I knew it was going to be a no. But I had to try, right? In Beast games, you have to try every
Yeah.
single angle you possibly can, right? You never know what the outcome is
Mhm.
going to be. So yeah, so he said no. And then that's when I had the decision at that point to say, okay, what do I do with this coin now? And that's when I decided, hey, I'm going to give this to Monica either way. I wasn't going to give it to Jim because I know that, given his track record on the challenges, I was like, this coin is going to get eliminated in 2 seconds if I give
Oh
this
my
to
gosh.
Jim. you know, Even though it would have been comical to see what he would do with it because he's a character. But I knew that it was in the right hands giving it to Monica. And fun fact, she didn't want the coin. She did not want the coin. She was like, "I don't think I want that, JC." And I was like, "Listen, I'm going to give it to you." I said, "The promise to flip the coin is mine. It's not yours, right? You don't owe that obligation to anybody." And a lot of this is not, filmed. I said, "You do what you feel you need to do with it. If you need to cash this out at any point, you cash it out. You secure that bag." I said, "But I want you to have this because this can help you. Not that you need it, when it comes to like physical challenges and stuff." I said, "But just in case, this can help get you into the top 6." I said, "Here you go." Um, and yeah, that's where we went.
Yeah, and I did like how they showed in the episode, kind of like a closing moment almost for you, where you addressed everyone remaining in the game to like, I want you guys to have a chance to flip this coin, all that stuff. So it's really nice to see. So that kind of leads me to this final question that kind of wraps us up here. Did you feel like this season kind of gave you a quote unquote redemption arc that you were looking for going into the game?
It's crazy, but yeah, The amount of people that have reached out to me on social media and say, hey, I thought you were a dirtbag in season 1 and I hated you and I like you now. Like I see who you are now. Like that's been refreshing, right? Because I got tons of hate and there's still people that hate me and that's okay. I'm okay with that. But yeah, to know that people are giving me a fair chance now to kind of know who I really am, um, has been refreshing to say the least. Yeah. So it's funny how it played out because I never went into season 2 with the mindset of I need to redeem myself. I went in with the mindset of I'm going to compete. I'm going to compete hard and I want to show them what I'm capable of doing. And the redemption just came with it. I was just being myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was awesome to see you shown in a different light, because majority of season 1, you were one of the most lovable people in the city. I'm not going to lie. Like you were there for everyone. So I really like how, people in the quote unquote real world get to see who JC really is. So I
Yeah,
really
that's the
love
one.
that.
That's the one. Regret that I have of season 1 that they never really showed who I am. And I get it. They needed the villain, and I fit that spot with my decision, but they never showed the backstory of why I got there, how I made that decision. They never showed me helping other players advance, like with briefcases. I secured a win for so many people that were so confused, and I was like, get that one, get that one, get this one. I memorized the code, so they never showed that, and it's all good. It's all good.
That's sweet.
Yeah, yeah. Have you watched Wicket for Good?
Of
Mhm.
course.
Oh, it's so awesome. It's so awesome. There was a line in that really stopped me in my tracks and my heart stopped beating when I heard Alphaba say to Galinda, she says, they needed for someone to be wicked in order for you to be good. And that's JC and Jeff.
Dang. That's
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's such a good line. And I just love how you closed out this season or closed out your storyline. But now I kind of just want your opinion on things that are still happening in this season as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, I want to talk about episode 8 and the $1 million split. What's your opinion on everyone's choices? And I guess more specifically, like asking about Brett. Do you feel like you kind of related to Brett in a sense, in where Brett was like, I felt kind of unsafe in the game, kind of in a dangerous position? What do you think about that situation?
100% it's relatable. He was in a spot where he didn't have that many strong alliances. He only has Corey, right? One person where when you look at like Nick and August and Jack, it's like that's a team, right? Jim and Monica and Katie and like he didn't have that assurance that he's going to be guaranteed tomorrow. So yeah, I can relate to that. I understand why he made the decision. The only thing that I would say is that if you're going to take $1 more than 100,000, take it all. Take it all at that point. Because either way, they're going to come for you. You already have a target on your back. Might as well just accept it and say, sorry, I don't feel safe in this game. I don't feel like I'm going to advance forward because you guys have strong alliances and I'm going to look out for myself and my family, and at that point, just take it all. Just like with Nick. I mean, I know he had strong alliances with, Jack and August and Tyler and all that. But if you're going to take 250 being the leader, you're already setting the trend. Right? You're already breaking that trust chain. Take it all at that point or take it, it just that part of it doesn't make sense to me. Why you would take a larger amount of your fair share and expect a different outcome or expect, relationships to be the same. And the thing about season 2, like I said earlier, they had the blueprint. They know how this plays out. They know what happened to me. I got shunned after that. Nobody would talk to me after that. It was everyone go after JC. I became the biggest target there. So they should have learned from that lesson, right? That I had to show them.
I completely agree with everything you just said. Watching it, lose my mind at the fact that they only took 250 because I completely agree. I'm like, you're cooked. You're cooked.
Yeah.
So why would you not take it all? So that is
100%.
definitely something that's so interesting to me still.
Yeah. And maybe they just don't want that JC stigma, Maybe they're looking at it from that point of view, like, oh, I don't want the backlash that JC got here by taking, so much more.
Yeah, I also, just for my 2 cents, I agree. Like, if you're going to take more than the fair share, then might as well take as much as you want, because dude, I think Brett knew once he took the 250K, considering how long he took to decide, he knew that it's like, okay, well, this is the end of my time, you
Yeah,
know?
you're
Yeah.
done. You're done
So,
at that point.
yeah.
Absolutely. And, whether he's done or not, I don't know. We have yet to see how that plays out. Maybe he uses the money to bribe and maybe they bite
Right.
that bribe. Who knows? I remembered what I was going to say. So the crazy thing about season two is they suspected that this was going to happen, right? They knew that there was going to be a money grab because we just came out of cubes. Everything is starting to kind of seem similar to season one, right? They had an opportunity even before this game to talk amongst themselves and, hey, if this scenario were to happen, what are we doing? They made verbal agreements, they made verbal bonds. They were able to tell each other whether they were telling the truth or not. Like, hey, I'm in this for a fair split. Let's all take 100,000, all 100,000. Everybody's happy. Yeah, kumbaya, right? Unlike season one, we never had that opportunity. We never knew what that challenge was going to be. They brought us out. They told us what the rules were. They split us apart. We went to our own cabins. We couldn't speak to each other. There was no verbal agreement ever made. And, that drives me crazy to this day that the internet is like, you guys made a verbal agreement. You gave them your word, JC, that you were only going to take 100,000. No, I didn't. None of us spoke to each other. Had I given my word, I would have stuck to it. But yeah, that's the only twist in that, again, whether it was gameplay or not, they kind of committed to a fair split. But it's a tough decision when you're there and that pile of money is in front of you and they're like, make a decision. How much do you want? This can change your life. That influence goes a really long way when you're feeling that pressure and you're like, wow, this could really change my life. So I don't fault them for taking more. I just wish they would have been gutsy enough to take the whole pot, if not a larger amount if you're going to take more than 100,000 at that point.
Yeah, 100%. And like, it's really crazy to think about. Like, you are one of 20 people in the whole world who have ever experienced that scenario.
Yeah.
And so people can say all they want. I would have done this, I would have done that. But at the end of the day, literally only 20 people ever have been in that situation.
You're not in their
And
shoes.
yeah, and I don't know, I just can't even imagine, like, do you have a way to describe, like, what is going through your head in that moment, like, at all?
Yeah.
Like, because I can't imagine.
It's a lot of pressure. And you kind of struggle with the morality of it. Do I take the moral high ground and do what's right? Or do I make a decision to choose my family over my friends? Right. And you guys know where I stand with that. It's family first for me. Friends come and go. My family's going to be here forever. No one's going to support my family the way I'm going to support my family. No one's going to be there at 3 o'clock in the morning when they have a bloody nose. It's going to be me or my husband. So you have to put things into perspective at that point. Why are you there? Why did you decide to apply to compete? Right. And it's a toss up. It's a toss up. For me, the decision was simple only because of where I was in that moment. I fully trusted everyone. I thought I was there with the best of the best, top 10 that I could possibly have, loyalty, um, trust. We were all there to help each other out. And then the moment I found out that I was being betrayed, that people were coming gunning for me, that I was going to be taken out, I got angry. I was upset. I was like, how dare they? Like, I've been genuine and I've been trustworthy and I've been loyal. And it's like, why me? You know my story. So I was angry. And then I was fearful, just like you said with Brett, fearing like, what if they succeed? What if they take me out? I just spent all this time away from my family to go home with like possibly nothing or not as much as I need. So all those thoughts go through your mind and I got stuck in that emotion. I got stuck in that anger and fear. And when you combine those two, ooh, it's a deadly combination. I just saw red and I was like, I'm taking this. And I didn't take it all only because I knew Emma was coming right after me. If Emma would have already gone before me, there wouldn't be a penny left only
Oh
because
gosh.
of how I was feeling. Right.
Yeah. It's just such an insane situation to put people in. And of course, it's Mr. Beast to do it. Who else?
I know. Good. He's good. He's really good at manipulating your feelings and your emotions and like pulling those strings. And I mean, you hear the way he talks to the players. He's like, well, you could do this if you really wanted to. He's good, man, at getting into your head. He's good.
Mhm.
He's the master of it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, for sure. I'm so glad we got to break down that moment with you too, now seeing that episode rolled out. But I think that brings us to the end of this podcast, unfortunately. Does anyone else have any final questions or final words we want to put out there?
I was just happy that they brought the whole team to the cube to say goodbye. I thought that was just such an amazing moment because I was stuck shackled in there for quite some time, like a long time. I was like, "Hello, production, are you coming to get me?" And when they opened up the door, that was the last thing I was expecting, to see the whole team there, like all the players, and that meant a lot to me because that's the one moment where I was like, maybe I do slightly fit in. Because I did feel like an outcast for most of it. So when I saw that and I can see that it was genuine, it wasn't performative in any way, it felt good for me. It was a good closure for me.
That's awesome. And so I guess with kind of all the experience that you have now being on both seasons, we asked you last season, but this season, what would be the best advice to future players of Beast Games?
Trust no one. Trust no one. Or trust lightly, I should say. Trust lightly more than trust no one, right? Because when push comes to shove, you see real colors come out, right?
Yeah, I think I forget who else was on the podcast, said the same thing. Maybe it was JT. Maybe.
I love JT. I was rooting for him, man. When he hit that button, I was like, yes, my dog. That's it.
Well, that brings us to the end of this podcast. Thank you so much, JC, for coming on. It's been an awesome conversation and so awesome to hear your insight on season 2 and how your storyline played out. If you guys enjoyed listening along, please like this podcast, subscribe to our channel if you want more behind the scenes content of Beast Games Season 2. We will talk to you soon.
See ya.